everybody. Welcome to the Evening Reader. My name is Priscilla, and today, I haven't done a video in a while. It's been over a week. It's just been nutty with work and stuff. It's a busy time of year, and so just trying to get myself together to do a video. I've wanted to. I started to do one. It just turned out really crappy. I just started rambling and kind of ranting about my reading lately, and it wasn't something that I really wanted to post. So anyway, I was gonna do a catch-up video today, but I was really afraid that I would just end up in the same kind of rambling ranting mood, because I just have had a lot of things on my mind about different aspects of reading and the books that I'm reading and things I'm reading about the books I'm reading. And I just thought, well, there is a tag. It's not really a tag, actually. Nope, I'm not gonna call it a tag, but there is a thing that Daniel at Guilty Feet started, called the Four Literary White Whales. And several other booktubers have done this, and I thought, that sounds kind of fun. Because I don't know. I guess some people have a shelf full. I feel like I have like a an aquarium full of white whales. And I guess these are supposed to just be books that you sort of, maybe you're familiar with, maybe you own them already, or you owned them at one time, and they still, and you wanted to read them, but maybe you picked them up, started them, and you soft DNF'd them, or you bought it with every intention of reading it, and then for whatever reason you didn't get to it, and so it's still on your shelf, or you had to return it to the library maybe, or you gave that copy away. But they still continue to haunt you, and you still want to read them. So not books that you're guilty that you maybe would never read, but things that you still do want to attempt to read. So I don't have as many of those as I would have. For example, one book that definitely is not on my list is War and Peace, because since I'm including only books that I have here on my shelf. I don't have that on my shelf anymore because when we moved, long story short, a box of books got switched. A box that was supposed to go to charity got switched with one that was supposed to come here to Amsterdam. And so it was like I knew how many boxes very well, like how many boxes I was bringing and what I thought what was in them. And when I opened the box of books that was not supposed to be here and was like, why are these books here? These are not books I wanted to keep. I knew for sure that one of the boxes had gotten switched. So, and that was the one that had my copy of Anna Karenina in it that I'd had forever and ever, which I have read, and it had my copy of War and Peace. It had all my Don DeLillo books in it. It had, it just had a bunch of books that I wanted to keep. I had a copy of Bleak House in there. I had The Ambassadors by Henry James. These are books that I hadn't read that I really wanted to. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. I had, just a bunch of stuff in that. Anyway, oh well. Such are the hazards of moving. Anyway, that's another show. Okay. So I went around and picked the books off my shelf, and I've got 4 books, and then I've got I'm cheating. I hope Daniel doesn't come after me. I've got 2 honorable mentions that I want to bring up, that are also white whales for me that I would like to get to sooner rather than later. So I will talk about those as well. So this book, I can't remember why I bought it. I want to say, I think I may have bought it because I read Into Thin Air why can't I think of the guy's name now who who wrote that book? Um, anyway, I'll look it up. It doesn't matter. But Into Thin Air, which is the book about uh, the the people who climbed Mount Everest and didn't go so well. I think that's probably a yearly story, but no, this was one pretty particular a bad climb. It's a wonderful book. Why can't I? John Krakauer. And I think I was just really loved that book. I thought it was terrific, and so I was interested in reading more books about people who have attempted the to climb Everest. And so I bought this book about the first one of the first Everest expeditions, which is Into the Silence by Wade Davis. And it's just spine's not even cracked. I haven't read it, but I have heard wonderful things about it. I think I've even seen somebody talk about this book here on the tubes. So yeah, The Great War, Mallory, and the Conquest of Everest. It says on June 6th, 1924, two men set out from a camp perched at 23,000 feet on an ice ledge just below the lip of Everest's north. What? Oh wow, this has got typo. Yeah, it does. It has just below the lip of Everest, north, and then it just goes straight to Colonel George Mallory, 37, was Britain's finest climber. Maybe if you can see that. I don't know if that you'll be able to see that. Like right here. It says Everest North, and then it just goes Colonel George Mallory. Whew. Anyway, yeah, they both went up Mount Everest. This Colonel George Mallory and Britain's finest climber Sandy Irvine, who was a 22-year-old Oxford scholar, went up Everest and they did not return. So I think this would be really. I'm sure this is going to be a really fascinating read. Um, that's one of my Y whales. Okay. The second one is I'm embarrassed about this one because everybody is reading this now or rereading this now. And I've started it several times and set it aside, not because it's bad, not because I was bored, not because it's difficult, just because something shiny caught my eye. What can I tell you? And that is Middlemarch by George Eliot. And I'm absolutely determined to read Middlemarch this year. And I don't think I need to read the blurb. I think everybody's familiar with this. I've said several times here on the channel that my area of study when I was in school, first it was classical rhetoric, and then it was 18th century British literature. And so I never did take a class or read the Victorians really at all. And, there was even kind of like a slight, maybe departmental rivalry, between the 18th century people and the 19th century people. Like, we 18th century people felt like we were much cooler because that's sort of the birth of the modern novel and and also more witty and a little more I don't know, more experimental. And then those those Victorians. Anyway, yeah, it was stupid. But so I never read Middlemarch or anything else really other than what I had already read like in high school or as an undergraduate, which was mostly just Dickens. And then of course I'd read the Brontes and Jane Austen. Then Jane Austen's kind of considered on the cusp of 18th century, 19th century, or at least was in the program I was in. So, you know, I had read that stuff in high school, and then again a little bit as an undergraduate, but never did get to read Middlemarch. So I really do want to get to this. Looking forward to that, actually. Okay, so Middlemarch is one. I don't know that this is turning out any better than my rambly rant would have turned out. It's just been that kind of week and a half, so we're just gonna keep going. We're gonna go with it. Okay. So this book I bought this off the tail of reading this author's other book. This is Iain Pears, An Instance of the Fingerpost. And I bought this because I read his book Stones Fall, and I just thought it was the most fantastic book. I just thought that it was really, really well done. Um, and I wanted to get this and immediately read it, and then I got it and did not immediately read it. I'll put a yeah, I can't I'm gonna say I can't remember what Stone's Fall is about. Even though I loved it, no, I do remember what it was about. I'll just put a link in the description box below. But it was fantastic, and I had a beautiful hardcover copy of that book, and I loaned it to somebody, and they never gave it back to me. So, yeah. But I bought this, and so it sounds really good. So it says, oh, this is not the blurb. That's People. It's People magazine. Where's the blurb? Oh, well, okay. I guess we'll just use People magazine's thing here. It is 1663, and England is racked with intrigue and civil strife. When an Oxford Don is murdered, it seems at first that the incident can have nothing to do with the great matters of church and state. Who poured the arsenic into the victim's brandy? The evidence points to Sarah Blendy, a servant girl. She confesses to the crime and is sentenced to be hanged. Yet, little is as it seems in this gripping novel, which dramatizes the ways in which witnesses can see the same events yet remember them falsely. Each of four narrators, a Venetian medical student, a young man intent on proving his late father innocent of treason, a cryptographer, and an archivist, fingers a different culprit. An erudite and entertaining tour de force, says People magazine. Anyway, I think this will be really fantastic. If Stones Fall was any indication of how this person writes, and I just remember Stones Fall was really absorbing, and it was also very cleverly structured, but in a way that made me think, wow, and not made me think, well, this is kind of tedious. This author is showing off. So I'm always impressed with that. So that's a big one. Okay, that's whale number 3. And then another one that I'm embarrassed that I haven't read yet, even though it's another one that I have started a couple of times, and then I tell myself that I need to go read something else first. And that is essentially just some more history on the period before I attempt this. Wolf Hall. And I don't think I definitely don't need to read the blurb on this one, because I feel like at this point in time everybody has read Wolf Hall except me. At least everybody on BookTube has read Wolf Hall except for me. So I would really like to correct that. And I would like to know if you read this without doing any kind of, preliminary reading first, or if you were really familiar with the period. Because, I feel like I studied different. What am I even saying? I studied different. Yeah, I read A Man for All Seasons in high school. Okay, anyway. This is just not going that well. All right. Honorable mentions. Honorable mentions. This I have read. This book I have read, but I want to reread it. And I consider it a literary whale on my shelf right now because I want to reread it so that I can read the rest of the series. And this is Robert Caro's The Path to Power. This is the first book in his currently 4-book series. And he's working on the 5th book. Please let him finish the 5th book about Lyndon Johnson, the presidency of Lyndon Johnson. It's really about the life of Lyndon Johnson because this starts with Johnson and his childhood and when he was at school and how he became a political creature, if you will. But Caro is just a meticulous researcher. At first I thought literary white whales meant it had to be fiction, but I've watched some of the other videos and other people have fiction and nonfiction. But I would say that, Caro is a literary writer, even though this is nonfiction. And this is one of the most important series that you can read to understand not only Lyndon Johnson, but also the American political landscape in the 20th century, from the 1930s until he died, and then everything that he did in the Senate and in his presidency, what that set up for the remainder of the 20th century and how it contributed to where we are today or where it didn't contribute. Yeah, it's much bigger than just a presidential biography, I guess is what I'm trying to say in my very uneloquent way. Thank you. Okay. So I want to reread this and then move on to the next books, because I read this in 1990 and that was a long time ago and never followed on with the series for various reasons. But I really want to read the whole thing. So, okay, maybe I'll get to that. And then the final thing that's an honorable mention is really new. And I've got to do something with it because I can't return these now. I don't think I can return these. So that would be Beowulf. Yes, I have 4 copies of Beowulf. And also Grendel by John Gardner, because Micah Cummins, David Wiley, and Steve Donahue were doing a Beowulf read-along, and they were going to post videos and discussions of these editions of Beowulf and then also Grendel. And I thought that sounded really interesting. I think my brain is just like hungry for something kind of academic or something. So I thought that sounded so interesting. So I ordered all the books, but it took the books a long time to come. And now I still have them. And I don't think they completed that project. I think maybe I watched a couple of videos of Steve talking about, I think the Burton Raffel edition, and I think the Tolkien edition. I think maybe he and Micah did a video on that. I don't know. Haven't looked at David's channel, so maybe there are more videos. And so just because that's what I was going to do. I was going to kind of read these on my own, and then because I was late, and then follow along and see what they said just out of interest. So I guess I'll be reading Beowulf this year. That shouldn't be too difficult. It's not too long. I've read Beowulf 4 times in my life. I read it as an undergraduate, and then I had to read it 3 different times as a graduate student. once in my old English class, and then twice when I was a TA and had to know it and read it so that I could grade essays. But I can tell you, even though I know the gist, still I remember the gist. I don't remember it that well, and I think that's why I thought, I need to get on that. And also, I'm just really fascinated by uh, different editions. Things that have where people have done different translations and the language choices that they make and the decisions that they make. Because you'd think somebody translate it once and then that we would just stay translated in that way, right? Because oh, the Iliad's the Iliad, the Odyssey's the Odyssey, Beowulf is Beowulf, and the Aeneid is the Aeneid. But there are many different reasons to make new translations of these works, and so yeah, it's kind of fun. I'll have a good time. I'll have a good time doing it anyway. There's lots of content online as well. So yeah, that's cool. It's cool. And Grendel, yeah, I don't know much about this. John Gardner, I read his, I want to say Art of Fiction, and if you need a book to scare you off writing, and Flannery O'Connor's admonitions didn't do it for you, then John Gardner could probably scare you pretty badly. If you get through that book and then you decide you still want to be a writer, then you probably want to try to be a writer. Not necessarily maybe a published writer, but a writer. Anyway, okay. So those are this is long-winded and rambly. It was going to be anyway. But these are my whales, and I would love to know what yours are, if we have any in common. If now you have a new whale because of me, if you're going to go out and buy one of these and let it sit on your shelf and taunt you, I would love to hear about it in the comments down below. Otherwise, let me know what you got going on. Because it's been a while, and I'd just love to know what you're up to. What are you reading? How's it going? Yeah, just drop a comment down below. And if you're new here, welcome and thanks for watching if you watched this far. And feel free to like and subscribe, or maybe just a like. It's all good. But thanks for joining me and for visiting. And I hope you guys have a good weekend. Take care. Bye.